fellow bookworms, Sativorous Den. My name is Whitney, and we are reading Lady Boss by Jackie Collins. I'm so excited to talk about this book today. Of course, we're doing discussion questions, so I can't really get into my full thoughts, but all I will say is I was cheering Lucky on in the last chapter where we ended on this week. I was cheering her on, I was clapping my hands, like, absolutely loved it. I cannot wait to jump into the next set of chapters. But first, we gotta do the discussion questions for this set. If you're not already participating, it is never too late. You can participate at any time. Links are in the description below where you can pick up this book, and then the breakdown of chapter sets are down there as well. If you do want to participate in the discussion questions, you can just read those chapter sets and find the corresponding videos. And if you don't want to do it that way, you can either just read the book, or there's also whole book discussion questions over on my website at the end of the month. So, plenty of ways you can read and participate in this. But yeah, absolutely loving it. It is 18 plus. It is a little crude. It is derogatory towards women, but there's a really good story there as well. So I'm glad I kind of pushed past that and stuck with it because I absolutely love it. So before we get into the discussion questions, just a reminder, we do a weekly read every Wednesday. We do a throwback Thursday. Series Saturday has resumed. The first video for that should have been out this past Saturday, so definitely go check that out. We're on the sixth book. I read Blood Rights, and so now, of course, I'm going to be jumping into the seventh book at some point. And then there's also other bonus videos where I'm slowly making my way through my ABC Author Challenge. That one's slow going. It took me most of the day yesterday to read one chapter, which was 40 pages, but the book is tall, it is wide, it's thick, and the words are tiny and crammed in there. So it is a beast of a book, but I mean, there's so many beautiful and descriptive moments that I'm really glad to be reading it, even though honestly, if I wasn't doing the challenge, I probably would have DNF'd it at this point. But because I'm doing the challenge, I didn't want to fail the challenge, which if I don't complete my reading, it fails the challenge. So I'm pushing through, and there are just these little nuggets that are just so beautiful, and I love them. So I think it's just a little bit intimidating having to push through that book. And I'm also working my way through my 25 days of Bookmas. There's also a book haul coming up, which kind of ties into that and one of my 2022 bookish goals. So keep an eye out for that video. If you haven't already, please give this video a like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification. It really does help the channel out. So now that that's all said and done, let's go ahead and dive into the discussion questions. Just a reminder that there is a certain level of spoilers. We are discussing these characters and these chapters. I try to keep it spoiler light, so it might just entice you to participate because you're really not gonna know fully what's going on, but there's also, like I said, a certain level of spoilers. So if you don't want any spoilers, jump off now and come back when you have read these chapter sets. This week we read chapters 23 through 43. And the first question is, Stephen confronts Dina. What does this show us about his character? And so I think it really just shows how morally strong he is. Like, he is not okay with what she presented. And is bothering him. It really is bothering him. And he has pressure from his wife and his business partner to just let it go. Like, it's probably not going to come to pass, probably just yanking your chain, but he can't take that chance. And so he confronts her. He comes to her and talks to her. And granted, he kind of buys her story that it was just kind of ruse. She was seeing what his reaction would be and yada yada. But I mean, that took guts not only to just not be okay with it and maybe like leave the company, like dissolve partnerships or whatever, but to actually go and confront the client, like that took a lot of guts. And I just think it shows how morally sound he is. So number two, would Dina have anything to worry about if Martin knew that Venus had been manipulating him from the beginning? So a little bit of a spoiler there. Of course, if you haven't read, you're gonna have no clue what I'm talking about. But I don't know because Martin, he kind of his reaction to her is like she has him wrapped around her little finger, like she has him right where she wants him. And I don't think he's necessarily able to control himself around her. So I don't know that it would matter that much. But at the same time, like he didn't immediately jump. Like she's starting to put pressure on him now, and he didn't immediately just jump to attention, I guess. And so I think it might have changed things if he knew that she's kind of been playing him all along. And so I don't necessarily think Dina would have anything to worry about um, if Martin learned of that. But I mean, honestly, you can't tell because on one hand, like he is very much controlled by her. Like he's controlled by his feelings for her and his lust for her, and so it's really really hard to say on that one. Number three. Would Lucky have been able to get as much information if she hadn't maneuvered her way into covering for Olive? And I think she would have gotten a lot of it. She's very resourceful, and she has, I think it's Boogie that finds out a lot of information for her. And so I think she would have learned, kind of about some of the deals and such that were going on. But at the same time, I don't think she would have gotten the full picture. And obviously, being there, excuse the dog hitting the table. Um, I think, and also the other crunching is the puppy. She's chewing on a bone. Um, but yeah, I think if she hadn't been there, obviously she wouldn't have been able to look at like some of the files and such on the actors and actresses and whatnot, and she wouldn't have been able to bug his office and get like firsthand insight to the conversations that were going on. She would just have like surface level knowledge, where now she really has like that inside knowledge. Number four, Mickey is working with Martin and plans on jumping ship if he can't convince Abel to sell. Or Abe, sorry, not Abel. I've been watching Claire Siobhan. She's a Sims YouTuber, and she has a sim named Abel. Um, so she did a video using him the other day, and that's probably why it's on my mind. So, anyway, Number four, Mickey is working with Martin and plans on jumping ship if he can't convince Abe to sell. If Abe wasn't planning on selling to Lucky or at all, would waiting be the better option? And I think it would be. Obviously he's kind of jumping ship because he doesn't trust the old man. He's fed up with only getting a lousy million. I mean, I would take a million. And not having really any say so. But at the end of the day, if he jumps ship and goes with Martin, like whether he convinces Abe to sell to Martin or he goes to the other studio if Martin buys it, Martin's still in control. And just from what we've gotten, like a look at Martin so far, I don't think he would just let Mickey run any more wild than he already is. Um, Maybe even less so. And then he also doesn't have that kind of family connection to fall back on either. So I really don't think, jumping ship and kind of just cutting cords completely would be the right move. Obviously, Abe is selling and he is planning on kind of screwing Mickey over. So that is obviously, something that is probably preferable at this point. But like I said, in the ideal situation, if Abe wasn't planning on selling and just keeping his business until he passes away, I think waiting would have been the smarter option. So, and number five, at one point, Mickey makes a comment about Leslie being worthless because she couldn't keep Eddie in line. Is she responsible for helping Eddie get clean? And no, at the end of the day, addiction comes down to the person who is addicted and struggling with that, for them to make that choice and put in the work to get sober. Now, does she kind of turn a blind eye? Like, I don't think she's necessarily enabling him, but she does kind of turn a blind eye. But I think if she pressured him at all, it would just kind of dissolve their relationship and she wouldn't be able to help them. Um, you can offer support and kind of encourage them to get clean, but at the end of the day, it really, really comes down to the person who's struggling with addiction. And so there's really nothing she could do. And so Mickey kind of placing that blame on her, I mean, it's just, it doesn't track at all. So, and number 6, does Mickey have any responsibility on the Bonatti deal, or is it right to let Eddie? Is it right he left Eddie hanging? Sorry, can't even read my own writing today. And so obviously Eddie's the one that started the deal in the first place, and he is the one that didn't honor the deal. He's skimming, off the top and taking profit out of the Bonatti's pocket. And so it's kind of wrongdoing on top of wrongdoing. But at the same time, Mickey did authorize the deal. He said it would be fine. And he's not exactly squeaky clean as far as like stealing money and such anyway. So I do think, him leaving Eddie hanging is not okay in this situation, even though it is kind of Eddie's fault, if that makes sense. Like, it's like you're not squeaky clean either. You kind of set that example for Eddie. It's not like he did this behind your back and then skimmed off the top on top of it. Like, you knew what you were getting into, and you kind of set the example as far as like it's okay to kind of steal and such from the company. And so, why wouldn't he steal from somebody you're partnering with too? So I do think Mickey does have some responsibility in this case, and it's not cool that he left Eddie hanging. So, number 7, does Lenny have any grounds for breaking his contract? On a legal level, probably not. Like, just because you don't like, who you're working under and the other actresses and actors and such, like, you're still binded into that contract. But at the same time, like, I can't help but rooting for him. Like, nobody deserves to have to put up with that. I think it's the director who's just a drunk and belligerent, and then he has to work with this actress who doesn't even know what the heck she's doing. Um, and yeah, I think, you know, that as a fellow human being, it's like, yeah, you go, but from a legal standpoint, like, he was binded into that contract. He probably should have finished it up and then tried to find a way to get out of it, his further contracts. But at that point, it would have been mute point because Lucky's planning on buying it. And then kind of can't help but blame Lucky a little bit, because if she had just let him in on this big secret, one, their marriage wouldn't be falling apart. He wouldn't be thinking she's sleeping with some Japanese dude. And two, I think he would have had more patience and been able to stuck it out and not screwed himself over this contract. I think it will still kind of work out in the end for him, but at the same time, it's like you should have just been a little bit more patient. I know it's not easy to suck it up in difficult working conditions, but sometimes you need to. So, and number 8, Nona is very cavalier about her parents' drug use. How has this influenced her choices? I think that constant exposure to drug and kind of just a laid back manner allowed her to in make her own choices. Like, she was very aware about drugs and kind of their effects and everything, and so she wasn't necessarily influenced to rebel or by peer pressure or anything else, and she was kind of able to make that choice for herself, that she didn't want that to be a part of her life. So in her case, it actually had a positive influence, though that wouldn't be the case for everybody, obviously. And number 9, Harry figures out Lucky is lying and up uh to something. Why doesn't he expose her? And I think at the end of the day, he is still very, very loyal to a Panther. And so, even though he knows something's up, he doesn't fully know what's going on, and he's not going to rat her out to Mickey, who he has no love for at all. Um, I think he's kind of smart too, and he's like, I know something's going on, I'm going to call her out on it, but he's not going to, blow or cover when he doesn't have the full story, especially if he doesn't know how that's gonna affect the Mickey and Abe situation. And I think he really, really is loyal to Abe, not only because he's been there so many years, but also we learned that Abe's kind of helped him out before when he was drinking and such. And so, yeah, I think it comes down to loyalty, and he's smart. And since he doesn't have the full story, he's not gonna just act rashly, I guess. So, and number 10, Lucky shows remorse for encouraging Harry to drink, knowing now he is an alcoholic. If he hadn't been, does that make what she did any better? And I don't think so, because at the time, she didn't know she was an alcoholic. So whether he's an alcoholic or not had no bearing on her choice. And so I don't think that makes it any better what she did. I think it was still kind of seedy and not okay, and she crossed the line there. Now, if she had known he was an alcoholic and then used that to pressure him into drinking and getting drunk, that would have been way worse than what she did, obviously. But she didn't have that knowledge, and so him being an alcoholic or not had no bearing on her choice, and it is what it is, and she crossed the line regardless. So, and number 11 is Lucky sacrificing her family for business. And I really think she is. There's several things that came up. You have Lenny, who kind of has given her the silent treatment and then went MIA. You have Bobby, who's her son, who keeps like asking like when you're going to come to visit. I really miss you. She kind of forgot all about Bridget, left her hanging calls, and summer's already started. So, and then she also wasn't there for Steven. Steven and his wife had a baby, and she wasn't there because she's so focused on this, and she thinks, well, it's only for this set amount of weeks, but it's not. And her and Gino had that conversation that it's not. You're gonna have to put some effort to turn things around and get this business up and running before you just leave it again. So it's not just, this set amount of weeks where you're undercover and such, because you're going to have to put in some work in the company as well. So I think she is sacrificing her family for business. And 12, is Lucky in the right with the things she did on her last day of undercover? And so this was where I was really cheering. And I think there were a couple things she was in the right. Eddie is definitely Mickey's problem, and her blocking him or something, like, what is that gonna do? That's your problem, and I'm not putting myself at risk. So I think she was completely in the right there with kind of manipulating the whole Mickey mistress situation. I think Mickey's getting his just desserts there. So while she probably should have just stayed out of it, yes. I was very happy she did what she did. And then with the other one, like, Abigail is obviously not a nice person. Um, but I don't just her kind of doing what she did in that situation. Um, where Abigail wanted like the limo and everything, and she kind of sabotaged that. I mean, yeah, she still did what she needed to, but she changed things like the specifications, I guess. And yeah, were they really going to affect the bottom line? No, but at the same time, I just thought it was kind of petty. And I don't know, I didn't enjoy that part as well, even though it's like she's kind of sticking it to Abigail, and it's going to really ruffle her feathers. I don't know, I just found that part really petty, but the rest of it, I was like, yes. So, and number 13, this is the last question. How does Venus Maria's brother justify his exploitation of her? So he kind of does, he feels entitled. He thinks she owes her. He came and just moved himself in, refused to leave because he thinks she's his sister. You owe me this. So he's very entitled. And that's kind of how he justifies his actions. Like, well, she owes me this. And then with the whole other situation, he justifies it well, I'm just earning money. And again, justifies it like, I'm just earning money and she owes me that money. So I don't know. He's. Ugh. I mean, from what we learned of her family's not great anyway, and then he just, I just don't like him. So, but yeah, basically it comes down to thinking he's he's owed this and he's entitled to it, when he's really not, and so he's using his sister and exploiting her for sure. But that is the last discussion question. Let me know any of your thoughts on any of the questions down in the comments. I would really love to get them. And like I said, if you are already reading it, I hope you will do so because really enjoying it so far. But yeah, I think that's it for today. So don't forget we are going to be reading chapters 44 through 64 this week, and you can find my thoughts on those discussion questions next Monday. And yeah, happy reading, everyone. Bye.